For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashni Whitley. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, EFF leader Julius Malema recently called for talks between the ANC and EFF to explore a working relationship. Do you think that we're actually looking at coalition talks?
It's not only from the side of Julius Malema. People like Mbalula saying he'd love to see Malema return, and the way in which Ramaphosa related to Malema at the Winnie Mandela funeral and on other occasions indicates that there's an attempt to ease the tensions between them. It may well be that people are exploring this, but I think we have to ask ourselves what they have to gain and what they have to lose. My belief is that it's not clear what support the EFF actually brings to the ANC. They have about 6% of the vote. I think they may have got 8% in the municipal elections, local elections, I'm not sure. But I think they've got about 6 to 8% support. They used to be a big factor in Parliament on a visual and dramatic level. But what is their organizational muscle in terms of the long term? Will they continue to grow? There are indications, for example, the reactions to the death of Winnie Mandela, things like this, are indications that young people look to the EFF, but it hasn't so far translated into organized support. Also, what exactly is the ideology of the EFF compared with what the ANC claims to stand for? Is it non-racial? If so, why is there a sort of careless use of language? For example, when every forum brings this action against Malema, why is it necessary to say he will not be dictated to by whites? There's seems to be an attempt to appeal to the lowest common denominator in terms of people's understanding of non-racialism, things like that. Also, there is language that suggests willingness to use violence. There is language on land, which is not one of exploring what the Constitution can do. For example, the Constitution does not prevent expropriation without compensation. Why has that not happened? What has the EFF done in order to make it happen? Now, on the side of the ANC, if the EFF were to come into some relationship with them, they may then win back the metros that they lost with the EFF support. But what will be the price that the EFF demands? They want destem out of the national anthem. Personally, I also would like to see that, but I think we have to ask ourselves carefully, do we want to destabilize the settlement of 1994? Brings into question a lot of the transition. The EFF will give them weight to change the Constitution over land, but I don't think the ANC really wants to change the Constitution, because the ANC recognizes that the lands clause, the property clause in the Constitution does not prevent expropriation, and that it's been a lack of political will, and they've got to get that political will in order to give land to people. On the level of the discourse that they use, ANC is trying to win over people in business and a number of other things, and combining with a party that is very careless in anti-white type discourse. I'm not saying they're anti-white, per se, but people who are careless about this, that may lose them some support, especially in places like Gauteng, where the ANC is afraid of losing. A DA is very determined to win the province or bring the ANC below 50%. On the other hand, if they're below 50%, they need the EFF. So it may be that the calculations of hard politics will lead the ANC to seek such a relationship. I think it's a relationship where the EFF is likely to gain most. But I mean, the ANC of today is not an ANC of ideas, an ANC of ethical principles and all of these things. It has got people who are ethical within the ANC, but the sort of ideas that were flourishing in the 1980s and early 1990s are not strong today. So these issues that I'm raising may not arise, and there may well be a alliance of some sort.
So a good working relationship between the ANC and EFF could spell bad news for the DA?
I think it will be difficult to have a good working relationship, be a working relationship. And that will be bad news for the DA in terms of bringing the ANC below 50%. But, yeah.
And Malema has said that the ANC and the EFF are two parties that are not dissimilar. Is that fair?
Well, you know, I don't really want to characterize the ANC today, because ANC under the new leadership is recovering some of the qualities that made very many people support it and sacrifice their lives for it. On the other hand, you have this fight back in KZN, people feeling that Zuma is being persecuted and all these sorts of things, not recognizing the various things that Zuma did. So whether they're dissimilar or not, for example, whether they're both corrupt, it's not clear. Whether the EFF proclaims itself as not being corrupt and that they can, AfriForum can bring on this case against the Commander-in-Chief Malema. So I'm not sure by what criteria we judge their similarity. The EFF is much more militaristic in their discourse, but discourse may not be practice.
Now you've said that Fikile Mbalula has asked the EFF to come back to the ANC, but so has Cyril Ramaphosa and Winnie Mandela before she died. Is this an option? Would we see it happening?
I don't know. I wouldn't know. You know, I have no inside track to what the thinking is in the EFF. Did Cyril Ramaphosa actually say that?
At the funeral, he did call for the EFF to come back to the ANC.
Yeah, I don't know why he did that, but if he did that, it may be that he sees it as strengthening his own support base, because the relationship between him and Malema is very respectful, unlike Malema's relationship and the EFF's relationship with Zuma. It's very, very different, so that it may well be that he sees it as supporting them. But Winnie Madikizela Mandela was always very close to the EFF, but said that they're two different streams which must join at some stage. But I mean, how much weight that carries, I don't know. You know?
Thanks for speaking with us, Professor.
Thank you very much.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about the ANC and EFF talks.